That's your first name. Unnecessary. You added a comma. Yeah. I'm Italian choices.
Yeah, I knew that. That's right.
Do we all go in? One nation. That's why undergrad.
There's another one right there too, if they need it.
Thank you. I do. Yes. No need to clap, guys. Stop. You're buttered. Yes. Catch your name. John. John? Yep.
Yes. Like my face. I look so pretty.
Just hit play.
Hey, welcome to our city council meeting. I believe the date's March 25th, 2025. Appreciate all the students here. And in the past, once we get through a couple of things, and generally you're okay to go. But we appreciate you being here. Welcome, Jeff. Are you in sunny St.
Thank you.
George?
No, I'm here in the office.
All right. And Gary, you're looking pretty chirpy.
Well, trying to be. I think I bought a new camera with the hope that it would really do something for me.
So
And now I wish I looked as good as Jeff does on his camera. So I got to find out where he gets his from.
You feeling good?
Thank you for that comment,
Yes.
Gary.
Hope to be back with you in April. So that would be good.
All right. Well, you're looking good.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Mayor. That's the first compliment I've had in, let's see,
In the last 5 minutes, right?
40 years.
So don't get too excited. It's the camera.
That's it. I tried.
Okay, well, we'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance from John. So lead us on. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States
United States of America,
and the republic for which it stands, one nation,
nation,
God,
under
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And I think I'll just say it anyway. We'll ask Sister Brooks to say the prayer. Aubrey, sorry.
Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for this day. Thanks that we could come here together and meet. about our county, and please help thy spirit to be with us tonight, and in the name of thy son, Jesus Christ, amen.
Amen. Thank you. And especially you young ones to recognize we honor that flag every time we have a council meeting. That is the most incredible flag on the earth. And then we try to bring God into the picture so that we keep things the way they need to be. So just want, that if you don't get anything else tonight, that's the key. Okay. We're echoing, huh?
Mayor. If you are ready, I will make a motion that we approve of tonight's meeting agenda.
I'll second that, Mayor.
Okay, we have a motion to approve the night's agenda and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, Janet, that's unanimous. We go to the consent agenda. Now, I personally took a challenge, Dave.
Okay.
I combed through this like forward and backward.
Is that right?
And I didn't find anything.
Well, you know what? There wasn't anything to find on this one. You picked the wrong one. Better luck next time.
Good.
Wait a minute.
Okay,
Page 4.
There we go.
It's tiny, it's small, it's hardly worth mentioning. We're talking about the motion where it says Tony moved for final acceptance of Pheasant Run phases 1 and 2. Pending the developer paying the city the amount, and it says that for the retention basin and then other fees associated with the subdivision. Should have just been, and the other fees associated with the subdivision rather than then associated with the subdivision.
Wow.
It was my motion. That's why.
so what you're saying, there's an N.
Yeah, this kind of reads kind of weird. And then other fees. I just thought it should say the other fees associated with the subdivision. That's it.
Okay,
Very small, but
are you ready to make a motion with that change?
yeah. So with that change, Mayor, I would move that we approve of the minutes of the City Council meeting on March 11th, 2025, and the warrants from March 7th, 2025 to March 20th, 2025.
I have a second.
I'll second that, Mayor.
Okay, so we have a motion from Tony, a second from Jeffrey to accept the minutes with that minor one word. All in favor? And the warrants, excuse me. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, that's unanimous, Janet.
Now, just so the two that participated, and all of your names will be on our next city council meeting agenda. Everybody that's in attendance gets noted, as well as those of you that participated. So if you want to come back in 2 weeks, it'll be good for you.
You'll be famous throughout the state.
Yeah, yeah.
See your name on the minutes.
Yep.
I thought you were gonna say they get a cookie or something.
Chocolate.
There's some chocolates there if you want some. Okay. I was gonna say Sister Perkins. Sorry. But do you want to step up to the mic, introduce yourself, and give us some comments? Is that green light on that? That mic, or is it red?
Right. Around the bottom.
Okay.
Push the buttons.
It's green. Can you hear me now? Okay. All right. Dear Mayor Gale and City Council members, my name is Tracy Perkins, and I am a new resident here in Morgan. We moved here last summer from Layton City. We really love Morgan. It has been a great place for our family, and we love how down to earth and welcoming the community is here, the people. We love to see the farms, the cows, the sheep, and we especially love when we see chickens running around the bigger yards in our neighborhood. The only thing that we've been sad about when we moved here was having to give up our backyard chickens and bees because we live on a small lot. Moving to the country from one of the biggest cities in Utah, we were really hoping that we could have chickens in the country, that they'd be allowed in Morgan like they were in Layton. Currently, Morgan Code, and there's a handout on the back, Morgan Code is right here in the center, states that you must have a 20,000 square foot lot, which is almost half an acre, 0.46, in order to keep chickens, with a sliding scale that goes up from there for larger properties. This prohibits many residents with smaller lots, like me, from keeping chickens. Layton also had a sliding scale for chickens there, but it starts with lots much smaller in size, like 8,000 square feet, which becomes 0.1 of an acre. It also starts with fewer chickens to be reasonable for the smaller lot sizes. The back page of your handout at the bottom shows the Layton scale that I took from their website. For your reference. With this approach, if we had this here, I, for example, on my 0.2 acre lot would be able to have 5 hens. I am here requesting that we adjust the Morgan Code in a similar way to allow residents to keep chickens in their backyards on a smaller sliding scale. Or I could be granted an exception for my property if that's a better approach. There are many benefits to having chickens. We're all aware of the current high price of eggs, and it doesn't appear that that is going to be changing anytime soon. It would be a great opportunity for citizens who wish to be more self-sustaining to be able to keep chickens for eggs. Hens are quieter than dogs. They don't require much space. They help keep down bugs and weeds. They eat leftover food, reducing food waste, and they provide fantastic fertilizer for our gardens. I've had the blessing of raising chickens for about 20 years, and I felt like I was better able to raise my children by raising chickens. They learn lessons of responsibility and character that I feel they could not have learned in other ways. I really miss my sweet chickens, and I hope that we can find a way to allow those who have smaller lots here in Layton Morgan, to be able to have chickens. When I asked my neighbors about it, they said they were all positive about it as long as there were no roosters, which is totally understandable. And some of them were even interested in keeping chickens themselves. By allowing more Morgan residents to be able to have the opportunity to keep chickens, you will help to make our community more resilient. Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you for bringing that up, and we don't come up with solutions in this meeting. But I was just gonna engage Gary here off of that Layton. You probably can't see it, but that seems like a pretty good setup to me that would engage more people having chickens, and maybe we could put not 10 dogs.
I know who drafted it, and I think it's a pretty good ordinance, so.
It's sound, huh?
Very sound. Yeah, if you want to know, Layton City Council did a ton of work on this, and it was over a period of time that they actually put this thing together. And I think we heard just about every different from every different chicken owner from one end of Layton to the other, and those that didn't. And this is what we came up with, and it has worked pretty well. It hasn't. People who own chickens are pretty responsible with them, especially the urban folks that own chickens.
Just for the audience information, Gary recently retired as the Layton City Attorney.
I know I don't look that old, but
Gary, may I ask a question? Are they required to be in a coop?
they are. Well, yes, they're required to be constrained so that they can't run into the neighbor's yard. And if you know what's good for you in Layton, you do coop them up at night, simply because if you don't, we have a lot of foxes in Layton. And there's rumors that there are still mink roaming around up in Morgan, so
There are.
You probably would want them in a,
That's verified fact.
Okay. Well, thank you for your input and we'll get working on this.
Yeah, the information was well written and well done. Thank
Yeah,
you.
way good.
Yep.
Okay, and you're free to go. Right now. Unless you want to stay.
Linda's going too?
Yeah, it's Katie's birthday. She gets to go have strawberry, whatever. Okay. We have next on our agenda a verbal presentation from Morgan High School senior class officers.
We have one extra of these. Oh, you're good.
He needs it.
Sure. Thank you.
Thank you for having us tonight. I'm Peyton Croxford. I'm the senior president, and then we have.
I'm Jackson Rudd. I'm our senior cabinet.
And I'm Aubrey Brooks, the senior secretary.
We're here tonight to propose a senior service that we could do, or a community service from the senior class that we could do on May 21st. We want to do something that's a little bit more meaningful, something that the community would really need and something that would benefit the community. Did you have anything else?
So yeah, obviously we'd want to work very closely with you to figure out what would be the most beneficial to Morgan overall that we could do. As a group, we have about a class of 150 seniors. I believe that's the number I was given.
There's 300 kids. So the day that we have this service planned, we also have kids going up to whitewash the M. So we would split. We have the biggest class that has gone through Morgan. So we'd be able to get like 150 kids to the service and 150 kids to whitewash the M. So we just want to do something a little bit more meaningful. I know that last year they walked the path at Mickelson and picked up some trash. That is great. We just want to do something meaningful
Go
too.
Bigger,
So
a little juicier.
we have a little bit more kids that can get involved. So we can hopefully do something a little bigger.
And in exchange, because we do love serving our community, but also since we do have such a large grade passing through Morgan High School this year, we would ask that we may receive a little bit of monetary donation to our Operation Graduation, which would be happening 2 days later. I think that's all we have.
You know that's an automatic. How can you say no to you guys? I think, Ty, we sort of turned the project over to our parks.
City staff.
And I think they got some fun things for you already kind of
Perfect.
in the making.
All right.
And the donation that we've always given in the past is 500. So that helps a little bit, maybe buy 2 dozen eggs like we used to.
Oh, yeah.
They will be well spent, well used.
Yeah, we appreciate every year when you come and volunteer to do some service, and you've done so far, all the classes before you have done well, and I'm just interested to see how the M turns out with 150.
We'll see. Well, it's gonna be a big year,
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
long graduation.
So I think everybody has always been okay. So we appreciate you coming and making the effort, and how will the parks get a hold of them? Just the school?
They just get a hold of me.
Okay.
If you have a day picked out, that helps. That helps
Yeah.
a lot, and then we'll just.
Was it May?
May 21st. Yeah.
Yep.
And yeah, get in touch with Ty Bailey.
He's my cousin, so shouldn't be too hard.
I have a card over there by the candy.
Okay,
My cell phone's on it, so.
perfect.
and we'll go
Thank
from
you,
there.
guys.
So, yeah, just depending on what you want to do, then we'll just give you the requirements, like everyone's gonna have to bring rakes or
Perfect.
gloves or.
Spending money, I'm sure it does.
All the
stuff if you want.
things.
But we have a lot of work going on the Mickelson Mile right
Right.
now, so I think it'll probably involve the Mickelson Mile, but more heavy lifting than just trash.
Okay.
And that's why we're bringing lots of manpower.
Yeah,
this
might be
year.
doing, might be doing a little shoveling and raking and
There's
No
a,
landscaping this time. so
Perfect.
yeah, there's a lot of work over there where they've,
To do, yeah.
yeah.
yeah, it really looks good right now. You can see the river. It's fine.
Mayor, may I ask a question?
I bet.
Gary, where we're donating money, does this require a motion?
It's in the
You have in the
budget.
past
It's budgeted.
made a motion.
What did he say?
You have in the, I'm sorry, you have in the past made a motion to do that. But I think it's also included in the budget every year. So the motion is more of a formality than anything else, but it does involve money, you're right. And it is included in the budget that we put together every year. I know that we include an amount for this purpose.
So it wouldn't hurt.
No, it would be really good.
Entertain a motion then.
Well, then, Mayor, I will make a motion that we donate $500 to the Morgan High School for Operation Graduation. And they will contact Ty and find out what work needs to be done.
I'll second that. Okay, Jeff?
Aye.
Tony? Aye. Eric? Aye. Dave? Aye. Okay, kids, it's
Jeff's
unanimous.
online.
Oh, Jeff. Just blending in. Did you give an A? He did.
Yeah.
Lovely.
Okay, so that is happening.
Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
Yeah. They're all leaving?
Yeah.
All this fun stuff left.
You guys are missing out. This is better than TV.
Tony.
Yeah.
Might have more people around if we did.
More.
Yeah. Okay. That's fun to do, city, every year. It's a good thing. Okay, let's go move into the active agenda. Item A. Review or take action on ordinance 25-03. An ordinance amending the zoning designation of parcels of property containing a total of approximately 1.78 acres located at approximately 215 north and 500 east by changing the zoning designation thereof to remove the historic commercial overlay zone by designating the entire parcel to the existing zone of central commercial, providing for the amendment to the zoning map. Providing for repealer, providing for severability, and providing for an effective date. Okay, you can probably lead us on this.
We can probably just go Jake. Yeah,
Jake.
yeah, it's come through the planning commission, so it's been talked about.
Janet,
It's received
You,
a positive recommendation
approve
from the
the-
planning commission.
so that lets me do the screen share.
Okay, Jake.
Okay, great. Good evening, council. Great to be with you. The item that we have is the planning commission has made a recommendation to change the historic commercial overlay zone, which will remove the hotel property. And in December, we received an application from the hotel for signs. They applied for 4 different signs, a sign to go on the building, on the cupola, the little tower. We approved that. That was per zone. They also applied for a pole sign. That was denied because that's not allowed in the historic commercial overlay zone. They also applied for an off-premise monument sign. And then the 4th sign that they asked for was like a indicator, small little kind of wayfinding sign. That also was not allowed because it's off-premise. We met with the sign company. We had a lot of discussion with staff, Gary, the hotel, and we came up with the recommendation to remove the hotel so that they could do a pole sign. I mean, that was really the main purpose. But we didn't look at it just in that context. We looked at it, so the hotel is existing. We're not anticipating any major constructions, changes. It's not of historical significance in terms of, it was built 4 years ago, something like that. And so it's more of a modern hotel looking. It's also not on Commercial Street.
Set off in the street.
Where it's set back behind, it doesn't change the nature of Commercial Street. And so by removing it from the historic overlay zone does not, it'll still continue with the base zone, the central commercial, and that will continue as is. That's really the biggest reason behind this. But also we don't see any significant changes. I'll pull up the map. You can take a look at it. Just kind of visualize that. There we go. So just kind of this piece right in here behind. And then looking at it. And also in the packet. There it is. So there's the parcel right there, 215.
Only has a question.
Fire away.
So Jake, there was some discussion on the monument signs as well.
Correct.
You want to mind just sharing
Yes,
that with us?
we are working on language for the monument sign. Our code mostly calls it a low profile sign, but we also reference monument sign. So for consistency, we're sticking with the low profile sign. They're the same thing if you see those two terms. The language that was discussed at the last planning commission is one, to allow off-premise signs, but there's some caveats in that are, one, there would have to be written permission by the actual landowner granting that permission. That may be in the form of an easement, so it continues with the land. Also, in the historic district, we're looking at maybe having a base of 24 inches of brick or stone or something like that, so it ties in. And then also only one sign per property. But again, that's all discussion at this point. We don't have, next month we'll have a draft ordinance at the planning commission, and then most likely you would see that in later April.
Jake, for Jeff.
Yes.
Jeffrey's sake, and maybe Eric,
A monument.
explain a monument sign.
Monument sign is up to 6 feet tall, maybe 6 to 8 feet wide, just kind of your base
Okay.
sign. Low profile monument. Monument's kind of the main name.
There's one over there now as you turn into that sign out. Okay.
Our new sign, the electronic
The
sign,
electronic one,
that would be considered like an electronic monument sign.
but this won't be an electronic sign.
No.
It'll just be a lit up.
Well, we're not talking an actual sign. We're just talking sign ordinance that would allow it.
Okay.
And electronic signs have their own requirements and things with it. Closed session. Just kidding.
Thank you.
Okay.
But yeah, tonight we're just talking, changing the hotel zone, which would allow them to apply for a pole sign.
Have the historical committee been at the planning commission? Is Cheryl and her group on
No,
board with this? So I told them about it in the preservation meeting, in the historic preservation meeting, and they didn't see any value to the keeping the hotel.
Keeping that far back. Okay.
Yeah.
okay, thank you. We did have a public hearing, no public comments, and the planning commission voted in favor of it unanimously.
This is probably already known, but when you say pole sign, how tall we talking?
I think it's up to 50 feet. It's not the same as the 7-Eleven,
Okay.
but where it's in our corridor by the freeway, it is up to 50. It's not exact. Gary may know the exact number. I don't have it off the top of my head,
It's,
but I
it's
think it's
55.
55.
Okay.
Just a little taller than the hotel.
I guess. Not that it's gonna matter, but how, once you get 55 up, then how big?
How big?
Yeah,
Yeah. I don't, do you know that too,
Size.
Gary? Get that?
billboard size, I mean, I
Um,
don't, not that it's gonna change my mind, but just informationally.
yeah, interestingly enough, there's a minimum size, but it's predicated on your frontage, which is kind of interesting here.
Yeah.
So we're gonna
Which
have
they don't
to,
really have frontage.
we're gonna have to take a look and see what the frontage, what we consider frontage for this purpose. And my guess is we probably might consider frontage the front of the lot there. I'll
You're
take a
saying
look.
here
I'll take a
on
look
the west or on this side?
on that side right there.
That side.
That would be the frontage.
Okay.
That's,
It won't be as big as the 7-Eleven. The city doesn't allow
No,
something like that anymore.
no, I think there's a limit, and I think it's 300 square feet, kind of
So that
enters
could
my
be
mind.
10 by 30. That's pretty good size.
Yeah, or 15
yeah,
by
yeah,
15.
it would be.
The,
I assume they think it's going to be visible from the interstate? Would that be
Yeah,
safe to say?
that's their goal.
Yeah.
Will it be lit, Jake?
I'm sure.
yeah,
have to be.
All that would be according to the current ordinance, which I
Whatever
think it
we
does
allow right
allow
now, yeah.
lighting,
Okay.
and internal
Yeah.
light.
Okay. You know, I'll just comment too, and Tony and Steve have been part of the planning commission, but there's been a lot of work and effort on their part that's gone into this one. Quite a bit of discussion. I think it's come back at least twice, is that correct, to the commission before they gave the thumbs up on it?
Yes,
Once or twice?
yeah, we had a discussion and then,
Yeah, so,
and then the next item, they looked at it 4 times, but
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, this one was a little easier than
Yeah.
the other one, but nonetheless, still some good vetting, if you will, that brings it to this point.
I'll just make a comment myself as well. As I just was paying attention the other day as I was coming home, coming into Morgan and really, I mean, there's a little sign out there that indicates there's a Comfort Inn, but there's really not a whole lot to indicate that that's there. And that there is a hotel there. And I was just thinking that to allow that sign, that pole sign would probably be a pretty good benefit for them as far as interstate traffic is concerned. My personal feeling would be on this issue that anything we could do to help that business thrive and do well, I would be in favor of, because I don't want to think about the alternative if it isn't successful.
You know,
So,
Tony, the planning commission had a similar feeling about
Yeah.
it, that they wanted the hotel to succeed, and what can we do to help?
if you'd like us to look at pole signs, well, 'cause essentially we'd be opening up the sign ordinance, we could look at that too and just make sure it's not something too big or too, Vegas.
I personally feel that'd be a pretty wise thing to do.
You know, and I think too, Jake, it's one of the requirements from the new franchise that they have the pole sign.
Yeah.
I guess we're really not.
No, I'm dealing with that right now. If you go south or east, the next lot, was it 411? Is that all in the historical district, the empty lot back there?
No.
Is
Oh, yeah.
this?
Yes, I
Yeah.
think, yes, it is, this one right here.
which empty garage?
Okay, so all of that back there, we're just taking the hotel piece out of
Correct.
the historical overlay right now. Okay,
Just the hotel footprint.
yeah, but I didn't know if that next lot, where that fit.
Yeah, we do have that in there.
Mm.
Some of the development they've been looking at is in context of the historic overlay nature. So
Okay.
I don't see a reason to remove them at this point.
Right now.
But this
Maybe I
just
could
is
answer-
the hotel footprint essentially.
Yes.
I can answer your other two questions. I just looked it up in the code. And they would be allowed one detached, this is a pole sign sign containing 1.5 square feet for each linear foot of what they call street frontage, but in this case, it would be the front of the lot. You know, the part that is facing the street. And up to, but not to exceed 300 square feet. Let's see.
But they really don't have any frontage, do they?
No, what we're doing is we're counting the frontage that they have towards the commercial street as being what we would interpret as being frontage. If you have a,
Jake, you're 305, 300 feet roughly.
Yeah, 305, and say that again, they get a foot.
1.5, so
one
that
and a
max it.
half.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
max it.
so it would be a max,
Max
they
of
would
300.
max that out.
Mhm.
And then, regarding the height limit in CG and CC's, what zone is this? Remind me, Jake?
CC.
CC is 30 feet above the average grade of the front of the property, except at locations designated in the freeway corridor. And in these locations, they may be a maximum of 55 feet in height. And I think this is in the freeway corridor, isn't it?
I believe so, or I'll have to double check that. I don't know that.
I'm pretty sure it is.
Yeah.
Cause I think the McDonald's sign was. And that's set back even farther.
Hmm.
So
That
That's-
would give them 11 by 40 feet, 12 by 40 feet.
They'd hit the max.
The max is 300.
300.
Oh, did it say the max is 300?
300.
Okay,
Uh-huh.
okay, so 10 by 30 or whatever arrangement they would want to do.
Yeah.
We could take a look and see what other cities do and what does that really look like?
Yeah.
You know, 10 by 30 on the ground is
Right.
giant,
Yeah,
but maybe
50 feet up, it may not
up
do
in the
much.
air,
Yeah.
it's,
You don't know how big the 7-Eleven sign is,
Mm.
just for comparison.
yeah, I don't.
Oh,
You're not gonna see it down the freeway unless it's
probably 10 by 30.
that size. So
7-Eleven?
I don't know.
Oh, no, it'd be way bigger than that.
Yeah, that's a big sign.
But I mean, you ever taken a semaphore where when you've had a guy up there servicing it, they look that big from your car, but when you get a guy up to it, they're almost as tall as the person, just
Oh,
because of
okay.
the height.
Is this it right here? It's more of a square though.
Well, we're not debating the sign right now.
no,
That is 20 feet.
Seven.
Oh, no, it's
Oh.
this. That's not it.
Yeah.
It's right here, isn't it? Isn't that it?
Yeah.
It's a
It'd be the,
two-sided sign.
are those the canopies there?
Let's see, where did I see a comforting sign the other day? Was it down on 21st? Is it off 21st Street or there's one right there off the interstate down? Where the exits in.
First or 24.
It might-
31st.
You know, we're sitting here
development
thinking about this, and I'm sitting here going, I don't even pay attention to the things, and I'm in hotels all the time, like.
Where's the
What?
Did it even have a sign?
It's not even gonna matter, but
buildings over?
I think,
it's not like I'm going, I think that's a 10 by 30 sign.
Yeah,
You don't even think about it.
That's where I want to stay.
This is correct right here. If that's the sign top, that's about 30 feet. So the top
Okay.
part, but this sign is,
Maybe-
it's really tall.
Yeah, 30 by 40 or 50 maybe.
That may be
Yeah,
the
not 50,
difference
but-
is that they're very tall, like.
Okay.
So that could almost be double the,
Yeah, 30 by 30.
Limit.
one thing we've also discussed is we're pretty adamant about not allowing off-premise pole signs. That essentially is billboards.
Yeah.
And so,
And the ordinance is written that way.
Yeah, the ordinance is that way. A monument sign is very different, you know, it's on the ground. It doesn't have that same visual impact.
And just one other thing, at planning meeting the other night, there was a little bit of discussion on directional signs. And so I guess that might be something that they look at in the future as well, I'm guessing.
Yes,
So,
yeah.
I mean, as you come in to Morgan under the bridge, I mean, is there a value in having a directional sign there that points to what's down Commercial Street? So that's another discussion that, correct, Jake? Is that-
Yes. It still would have to, in their case, have to be off premise, so they'd have to have written approval, and we also don't want to clutter. If everybody on Commercial Street had a sign down on the corner, that'd be very busy and kind of ugly.
Yeah. I know once upon a time, we actually talked about a directional sign, and this is probably neither here nor there for tonight's discussion, but you know, you go down that one street and there's Canyon Collision is down there and President Hale's company, Center Point, and nice glass, and that's down there more off down toward our industrial area. So I've thought of that a little bit too. Is there a benefit of having a directional sign out on State Street pointing to those businesses? But that's something to be discussed later.
So.
All right.
Gonna go?
Yeah, if there's no other discussion, I'd make a motion. I'd move that we approve ordinance 25-03, an ordinance amending the zoning designation of parcel of property containing a total of approximately 1.78 acres, located approximately 215 north, 500 east, by changing the zoning designation thereof to remove the historic commercial overlay zone by designating the entire parcel to the existing zone of central commercial, providing for the amendment to the zoning map, providing for repealer, providing for severability, and providing for an effective date. Period.
I will second that.
Okay, we have a motion from Dave, a second from Tony, on ordinance 25-03. Jeff,
Aye.
Tony,
Aye.
Eric,
Aye.
Dave, and Jeff. Got a thumbs up? Okay. Okay, that's unanimous.
Interesting.
Okay, this is our next item. So in our general plan, it talks about having more mixed use in the downtown area. We're talking central commercial. We have interest by potential developers that are wanting to do some mixed use in the downtown. And by that, I'm talking about residential over commercial. That's not allowed in our code. The general plan does encourage that. Also, our current downtown planning process is recommending the mixed use in the downtown. It would of course, give us more housing. Not necessarily a ton of housing, but some. Residents who live in downtowns spend more money in downtowns statistically, you know, eating out, shopping, things like that, just as a number across the board. And so as we looked at the code, we found a few ways to make some minor tweaks without major overhauls that would allow it, that would still continue commercial uses. This item was looked at for 4 months by the Planning Commission, so that they really went over it. And we did have a public hearing. Again, no comments against it. And then the Planning Commission did vote in favor of it last week, recommending it. I'll run through some of the items that we have in the code. This is a very kind of strategic surgical code changes to allow it, but not make a lot of big changes. It is in the CC zone. So I'm just going to kind of pull up the CC zone just to give you a reminder of what we're talking about. So that's the yellow area to kind of give you an idea. Not necessarily a lot of places in Morgan where this would happen, but mostly commercial, 125. Those are the two corridors, and potentially on the street that has the mobile home. Although we've not received any interest or application or discussion on that, so I don't want to start a rumor. But those are the areas where it would be allowed. Okay, I'll run through some of the code changes. This first code change is adding a definition for architectural metal. Our code currently doesn't allow metal siding on buildings. And I think part of that is because historically, metal was for sheds and barns and warehouses.
Mink
but-
sheds.
Mink sheds. But in today's architecture, there's a lot of really nice buildings that are using metal. And metal can have colors, it can have textures. There's a lot of great things that can be used. And so as I went through this code, I noticed that. I said, well, let's split this out. We'll have our regular metal, which we don't necessarily want or historically haven't wanted, and then architectural metal. And so we added this definition. Essentially, it's talking about just doing artistic things with it, and it's matching the architecture design. Okay, the next definition we added was a building step back. So when a building goes up vertically and then goes horizontally before it goes up again, that's a building step back. Kind of sounds like setback, but it's a step back. So a lot of times you'll see where a building will, go up 2 stories or 3 stories and then go back and then go up again. The nice thing about that is that it makes the building not look and feel as tall as it is. So if you have a 4-story building or a 3-story building, you're there on the street, you only feel what's closest, that tallest there. Let me show an example of that. Oh, sorry. I swear I had one. So these aren't great examples there. But the idea would be, the building right here, this brick would go back and then up. This is an awning coming up, but it looks kind of like that. I can pull up examples if you need to see that for the purpose of that, but we'll come back to that. So that's a step back where it goes up and then goes back. And then a mixed use building, we added that definition. It wasn't in our code. So if we're going to allow it, let's define it. And we're very specific that it's commercial on the main floor and then residential or another use above. It doesn't necessarily have to be residential above, but that's the most common. In our case, our code as presented is on the main floor, you still have to do commercial. Morgan City has very limited commercial space. Some cities like Brigham City, they have way too much commercial zoning. All of, where the Walmart is and Main Street and all over, they're oversat. They're overzoned. Morgan, it's the opposite. We have very few commercial. We really have 2 main commercial corridors and kind of 125. So maybe 3 commercial. And so the code requires that on the street, on the main floor, you still have to do commercial. So we're not taking away commercial. We're just going vertical above it with other uses. This part allows the architectural metal would be approved by planning, so we're still looking at it. This is the section right here on the mixed use building. So like I said, it has to have commercial on the main floor. Parking is on the side or the rear. It does have a minimum of 40% glass on the main floor. That's a good requirement so that it looks commercial and operates that way. And then some glass up above. And these are some of the requirements in terms of quality buildings without going over restrictive. And then also a covered entrance. Almost all nice buildings either have something that comes out or you step in under the building.
What's the other 20% on the main floor? We got 80% commercial. What could the other 20 be?
It could be access to residential or a
See.
little clubhouse or something like that,
But
you know.
it couldn't be residential. That 20% couldn't be residential on its own.
Well, we do require residential is on the second floor.
Okay,
It could be
specific.
access, so it's
Okay.
like stairways, hallways,
Yeah,
that kind of thing.
okay.
Next item, okay. The setback, we're changing to 0. Originally, we were just going to do that for the mixed use, but the planning commission, they recommended, we have a 0 setback on some of these other zones. Why not make it 0 across the board? So whether it's a commercial building or a mixed use building, it doesn't matter. If they want to pull it up by the street and put parking behind, that's fine. It doesn't matter the use. So that change would affect all types of uses and buildings. So here's,
Jake, may I
go
ask,
ahead.
Covered how? The main entrance must be covered with.
Yes.
With what? How?
Well, that would be according to architecture plans. I feel like for zoning, you want to ask for some things, but not be over restrictive. You know, let's let the architect figure out how he wants to do it. But if he wants to do it with a metal structure coming out, that's cool. Or
Thawing of some sort?
and on, it does have to be approved, so it does have to go through a process. Or a lot of times you'll see where the entrance comes in under the building.
Yeah.
It's just a feature of a nicer building. And it's only the one main entrance, that's it. It's the kind of thing that the architect and builder would read and be like, okay, we can come up with a way to do that.
So help me out here. It's Grounds for Coffee. Would that be an example? Don't you walk into a little bit of a hallway?
Yeah.
Before you go through the main door of Grounds for Coffee?
Yeah.
That would count. That would qualify.
Almost all buildings have it, even if it's just a little, you know, cover coming out.
And Ray's old blue store, that would be, walk under there.
The old
They have
Williams, the
those-
old J. Williams and
They
Sons
have those
grocery
power
store.
shakes, yeah,
Yeah, right there by those, yeah.
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 Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, here's a couple other things. The side street setback may be reduced if the corner clear sight triangles and visibility is approved by the city engineer. So if it's a corner building, that side yard setback could be reduced, but they'll have to do the diagrams and show the engineer that there's no safety impacts. This number 2, we are giving 7 more feet. If they do the step back, or essentially here, if they have balconies that are open to the frontage. If they're gonna have some nice rooftop balconies or open patios, then they get a little bonus there. They're not actually getting an extra floor. With 7 feet, you can't do a floor, but you could bump things up a little bit with that. A couple other footnotes here. Doors must not open into the sidewalk or the public right of way. If you're bringing the building up, just doing that. It's almost common sense and public safety, but that was a concern the engineer had, so we added that. And then also utilities need to be utility standards. Bringing buildings up works, but you still have to work with the utilities, and there may be some cases where, you know, first design brings it up to 0, and then we need some room for power or gas or something like that, so we push it back a couple feet. This just gives engineer leeway to say, I need this for utilities. Okay, this is where we allow in the CC, we're just talking the CC zone. There has been discussion, what about the general commercial zone or other zones? And the recommendation was, or my recommendation is, let's just take a nice baby step, allow it in one zone, see if we get some projects, if we like that, then have a bigger discussion. But we're just taking one step in one zone. So it would allow for the mixed use as presented. And then also multiple family residential is allowed, but there is a requirement with this that it can only be behind commercial or mixed use buildings. So we're going in farther back behind the lot.
A
That-
separate building, standalone building?
Is it attached?
Well, it is separate because remember on the ground floor of that building, it can only be commercial. So it would be detached. It'd be other buildings back behind
On the property.
on the property. Correct.
What would the setback? I mean, what kind of,
The setbacks would be according to the zone.
Well, this would only be in CC though.
Correct. So the setbacks would be what's already allowed in the CC. We're not changing that. But we're saying, let's just say you have a deeper property and then you want to do a mixed use out on the street, and then back behind you could do some townhomes. You have to do all the parking required for townhomes, all the parking required for mixed use. There is a little thing about shared parking. We'll get into that in a minute, but it's very minor. And so back behind you could do that. And that's if you have deeper lots. That's the purpose of that. Again, we're still preserving the commercial frontage because that's the value of commercial buildings is on the street and that frontage. And this multifamily is only allowed behind. There's very limited spaces where this would work in Morgan. There's just a few. And as I drive 125, you know, there's some older buildings, some buildings there where people might want to do that. That's really the opportunity. Okay, we can come back to anything. Okay, so for parking, we have 2 items here. City engineering and planning may approve shared parking in place of guest parking requirements based on the review of a parking study, land use parking requirements, and professional standards. So our guest parking is 1 per 3 units in the code for residential. And the idea of mixed use, you know, if you have office space or a lunch restaurant or something like that, the demand is during the day. You know, for example, on Commercial Street, there's like a cosmetic business there. I'm pretty sure their customers are only there during the day. But the idea is that the spaces that are being used during the day could be freed up at night for residential or flip the other way. But we're only talking the guest parking. That's the only parking that can be shared. And they'd have to do a study and kind of show us that it works. This idea of shared parking works a lot. I mean, everywhere in Utah and other places are doing it because land is so valuable, and a good business has a lot of different uses. For example, near my home, there's a little shopping center. There's 2 gyms, and in the morning, half the parking lot is people going to these gyms. And then in the evening, nobody's going to the gyms, they're going to the restaurants. And then during the day, they're going to the dentist and the cell phone place and all that. So whoever put together that mix and is managing the property has done an amazing job, because depending on what time of the day you're there, I could tell you 80% of what people are buying and shopping and doing. And that's the idea, allow for some flexibility. And these agreements would run with the land, but anytime there's a change in use, then they would have to reapply and discuss it. So if the property owner has one use, an office that doesn't have any evening time, but then he wants to put in a comedy club that's gonna be busy in the evening, he's gonna have to come back and talk to the city.
Jake, the Planning Commission spent quite a bit of time on parking, and it seems like they had some concerns that they discussed. Do you remember what?
Yeah,
those were?
they did have concerns, but they were viewing this in the idea of sharing all the parking. And what we've done is we've closed that gap
Okay.
to just the guest parking. So that means the residential will still have the required parking stalls
Specific to residential.
specific to residential, and commercial will still have their commercial parking.
Mhm.
However, some of that commercial could be shared with this guest parking.
So I have a little bit of a concern because I live by somewhere where this is just abused like crazy up in Mahogany. All of the guest parking is with the residents that live there. And I know if we have a 1-bedroom, there's 2 people in there. I promise you, there's 2 cars in Morgan. There isn't just 1 car per 1-bedroom apartment. So that's the only hiccup I have is up in Mahogany, and how would they enforce the parking? Would that have to be, because it certainly won't be the city.
Correct.
So somebody would contract that.
It would be the property manager. That would be their job.
Okay.
Tractor Supply, guest parking. You can't find them. The residents have got them all occupied.
Yeah, that's the same up Mahogany. And that one's even managed by a property manager.
But they're not enforcing that, probably, are they?
Well, it's probably hard to enforce.
Yeah.
If residents who live there don't have parking, then they themselves should be complaining on it.
Well, what I think what I'm saying is we already have issues with it up here. And unless there's something really good, like, okay, I'll give an instance where my sister and brother-in-law live. You can't even park in the driveway for more than 48 hours. It has to be in the garage. And let's just say you have a guest there, and if they aren't in the guest parking or in the driveway, that car is towed.
That's very serious.
Yeah. But it's really the only way you can effectively.
Yeah.
I think it's, if I may, I think it's more comparable to an apartment setting than a residential. So our townhomes and single-family homes, I don't think our parking may or may not be adequate for that requirement. So like up in Mahogany Ridge are single-family homes, so that's a whole family, and essentially the parking requirement's almost the same as an apartment. But I've never heard of a parking problem at the apartments across from Riverside Park. And that met our current standard of 1 per unit and a guest parking for every 1.5, or however that works. 3. So every,
And we're 2 stalls for 2 bedrooms.
yeah, so
So
That's-
the apartments there by Riverside,
mhm.
The guest parking's the street. If you drive by there, there's cars on the park side and cars on the apartment sides.
I've seen cars on the street using the park, but you mean at night?
Yeah.
Because I've seen them at like at the skate park and stuff like that. I haven't noticed all winter any.
Yeah, because I'm sort of
So it's whatever one's closest. So the street's closer than probably the parking, but the complex was built with additional parking in the rear,
which is full
is it?
most of the time.
It
Uh,
has like a semi truck and there's some vehicles that are taking up
Trailers and
bigger than normal and that's the owner allowing that. He must feel like he has enough room.
I'm not against this kind of development at all. I'm soured on the parking thing because I live by a problem. We don't have 10-foot driveways like they do at Mahogany anymore. So if you have a Suburban, it's 3 feet into the street. But all the guest parking, I guarantee if we went up there right now, you would not find a parking place. One family has 6 kids and 5 cars. And they have a double garage for like if you have a compact vehicle, Subaru or something. And then from the garage door to the sidewalk, it's 10 feet. And there's 4 vehicles in there.
Well,
So Jake,
yeah, I mean,
it also,
that goes with single family development even.
we also say, you know, the shared parking based on the review of a parking study, isn't that going to identify or help identify problems going forward? I mean, it's clear we got problems, but this ordinance isn't going to correct those problems.
Correct.
So that'd be one statement, but the second one would be, does that mean that every project will have a parking study?
Only if they choose to. If they want to just follow our parking ordinance and go as is.
Just with the ordinance, but if they want to do something less, then they need a
Yeah,
study?
and only with the guest parking in terms of sharing it,
Mhm.
then they could do
So
a
we feel that
study.
our ordinance as is, it satisfies the problems if they adhere to that without the, say, parking study.
Correct. But Morgan's parking standards are fairly standard. They're pretty typical. They're not high and they're definitely not low. In terms of they basically kind of meet industry standards.
So I wonder if does that maybe beg a question, does that ordinance need to be reviewed if it's not working? If those standards are in the middle, do they need to maybe swing one way or the other? The parking
Well,
standards.
it sounds like the biggest issues are with the single family homes.
Mhm.
And part of it also may be just enforcement.
And how do you?
Do we need the sheriff's department to give more tickets?
Yeah, and when that home's built, you don't know whether there's going to be 1 child or 6 in there.
Yeah,
either, do you?
teenagers and all that.
So it's a little bit hard to project a future problem.
It is, and it should be, I mean, each homeowner definitely should not be parking on the sidewalk. I think that's a ticket item. And then for the plowing the streets, if the cars need to be pulled off,
That's
then
straightforward.
that's also a ticket item. And for an HOA, they need to manage it themselves.
So another thought or an example of just a visual is if you put that apartment complex right on Commercial Street, right? So that's the idea of the shared parking. So what's on Commercial Street? Like if we left this meeting at 8 o'clock or 8:30, the street's almost totally vacant. So that spillover on 125 would just be on commercial, but during the day, all of those cars disappear. But the commercial, like at noon, it's all commercial activity.
Yes,
If
I
that,
guess
if that, and it's just this,
kind of specific, isn't it, to what this is about?
that's what
we're
that's what I'm
considering
saying
tonight,
is this, it's way different than Mahogany, but I think we've also adjusted our codes to avoid ever doing another Mahogany.
Private private, so that was part of the.
Yeah, that was a
Mistake.
A mess.
it is,
Special
and it's a great concern.
So let me give you a scenario.
Okay.
If we had residents living above on Commercial Street, which we don't, it's all commercial, and then at night, the commercial's closed. But if we had residents up there, I think that the problem would be,
Their parking would all be in the back. The resident specific parking will be in the back. It was just the shared space. So 1 per 3 would be allowed to be
Well,
out on the street.
Tony, let me just say, I'm gonna go on record just saying I'm nervous
Yeah.
that in 5 to 10 years from now, we're going, oh, flip, that was a mistake. I'm just going on record saying that. I'm not against it at all.
Yeah.
Other than the parking and guest parking and so many people, like if say you had people, residents in there, there's not as many who drive their car away to work, they work from home, things like that. And so those spaces are taken up more. And the other thing I want to say is we're kind of rural. We aren't used to just having one vehicle.
Yeah.
We can probably talk to everybody here and they have 3 or 4. It's just the way it is. So I don't want to be negative. I'm just concerned that in a few years from now, we'll be going, oh, that was not the best.
Yeah.
Well, and part of this is encouraging the property owner to, you know, be judicious with his management and exercise his private property in a way to really manage that parking. And there is a balance of like, do we care more about parking, you know, for cars or housing for people? And that's a debate that's happening all over.
And I
the
think part of
state.
that balance, Jake, you illustrated very well in a planning commission meeting and used the example of a Walmart. Walmart will build a parking lot just big enough to accommodate cars for the holiday season. The rest of the time, there's tons of parking at Walmart. You can go to Walmart any other time and you can park a semi truck there. Almost any Walmart that you see.
I went there a couple of days ago and it was all the way to the road from the.
Sure,
front
but
of the
there's still
building.
parking if you go out far enough. So the point is, most developers and most projects, and we're looking to developers to build our city, can't afford to have parking at the maximum. You talk about the maximum and minimum, we're trying to be in the middle. They can't afford to do it just for the night or the day or the 2 o'clock where everybody's going to be there. It's prohibitive as far as cost is concerned. So that's, I think, the balance that you're talking about.
Yeah,
is You need to respect the
Land values are so high and so important that you really consider how do you use that? And so getting the most out of parking. When I see a parking lot that's full, I actually think it's a good thing, especially if it's not a parking like a commercial, because those are customers, you know, those are people living there, it's being used. When I see an empty one, I think that's a waste of space. Somebody's losing money here.
So we're talking also about a very just specific zone with very limited space. So we don't have the living quarters bring the commercial, because commercial's too risky to build on its own. And so if we just did commercial with straight parking, we're probably not going to develop out in that zone. And so by allowing the residential use, we're encouraging the commercial, but it's such a limited
kind of a
space.
give and take, isn't it?
But it is such a limited space that that's where the concept
Where the
really
balance
comes from.
comes.
Yeah, but it's just like on Commercial Street, when we started to redevelop, we got a lot of complaints about parking, and I kind of felt, you know, the way Jake does is that's way better than the vacant building problem we just had, but it's also
Yeah,
temporary.
those are good problems to have.
Yeah, it's also, you know, short-lived, but if someone's short-sighted on the amount of parking, this is just the very minimum requirement. And that they can count, like the code in other places says you can count parking up to 300 feet away and stuff like that towards your total, has to be your own, you know, your own self-contained project, but it is a step forward. Like you have reason to be nervous is what I'm saying, Mayor.
We're just talking the guest parking, and the burden is on the applicant to show us how it could work.
i.e.
The
a
applicant has
study.
to do this, the park study. then.
Yep, they have to do that. And
They pay for the park.
yeah, and that'll cost some money. I mean, and it
Yeah.
has to be by an engineer, somebody that knows what they're doing.
The other side of the business coin is a lot more is online and not as much. The retail requirement. You know, we have some stores like on Commercial Street that maybe 4 stores demand most of the parking and the rest of them are one car in and out.
5 years from now, it could be a different store. That could be a different story in front of that one that's taking up all the parking now. So
Yeah,
I don't know
so
that you can plan for every scenario.
you can't, and the commercial's gonna be small commercial. It's not gonna be, you can't do like a big franchise in a mixed use scenario. If that, you know, you're not gonna put a franchise restaurant in the basement of a,
People over McDonald's, that's for sure.
but a doctor's office or a hair salon or stuff like that would fit in, so.
I wonder, Jake, if we should include on that number 5, based on a review of a professional engineered parking study. The guy hands you a napkin and says, here's my study.
We could add that. That'd be easy add.
It'd be clear, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
And
I mean, staff would expect that anyway, but
Okay,
this
yeah.
would send a message to the applicant.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know what's available on a parking study, whether, you know, what the ranges are of how professional they are or not.
Have to do some research in terms of what are apartments parking at, typically times a day, how many cars per so many stalls, what is commercial doing, what is that crossover, and then show that it'll work. What are all the proposed uses?
We started that process on Commercial Street, so when we did get the parking issue, and we started studying the whole street with our prior planner to say, if someone proposes a business license and it was a certain time of day, then would say there's the X amount of parking available, but if it's at noon, then there's only so much left.
You can do that on the application side.
Yeah.
A good example of that is, and so the other, you drive by that south end of Commercial Street on a Sunday morning.
It's
that
busy.
is packed because, and that church, the community church is I'm not criticizing them in the least degree here. They do a lot of wonderful things for our community. But the thought crossed my mind as I drove down there the other morning, I thought, wow, what if Deb's was open on Sunday? You know, where would her customers park? Because I mean, it's you know, on the other hand, she's not, so maybe that shared parking concept, you know, works in that situation, but.
I did park by the liquor store and
Yeah,
walk a little bit.
Yeah. But it's just kind of an example of, I think, why we would need to be careful,
Oh,
you
yeah,
know, and
for sure.
what we,
Good concern.
yeah.
Okay, there's one more parking item on here. So before and we can always, you can approve the ordinance without this. You could remove it as well if you're as well. I think I passed it. Hold on. So the other. Not get in here. Sorry, 1 second here.
So may I ask another question, Jake?
Yes.
Guest parking may include street parking directly in front of the buildings. Stalls must be painted.
Yeah, where is that? Oh, I had that. Okay, sorry. It
Bottom of
ended up.
That on page 7.
Yeah, that was the last one.
So. Okay, so I'm thinking in my mind of our Commercial Street, okay? So we allow guest parking to be on that street and it has to, stalls must be painted. Does that mean that if you drove down Commercial Street, you want to go into one of the businesses, you couldn't park in one of those stalls because it's guest parking? Like, it just kind of seems a little vague.
This doesn't work as well in context with Commercial Street because Commercial Street is all street parking right now.
Yeah.
But if a business on 125 or another place that commercial, that there was room, there have to be room, then you paint those stalls and, because street parking essentially is guest parking, daytime use, especially in the winter. And of course, it's not a guaranteed, it's not like the residential parking where if you have this unit, you're guaranteed, or you have a townhome and you get a garage or something like that. So it's giving a developer to count for what's already happening. Meaning if there is a legal street parking, then that can count towards your guest parking.
Well,
Does that make sense? It's something that already happens, but it's saying we're just gonna give you credit for it because it's there. This doesn't allow street parking. That's all per engineering and per code if the street is wide enough and all of that. But if there is parking on the street, then that could go towards your guest parking. Street parking, you have to think about it. It's the most economical, efficient parking you'll ever have. You're already building the street, you're already maintaining it. Having a car on the street is, you know, some asphalt on the side. That's the cheapest asphalt that you'll ever build for parking a car.
I guess my problem is I keep looking at it in context of our commercial street, which is, you know, I need to.
Well, let me say one thing about Commercial Street. You have to kind of, if you wanted to go build Commercial Street today, you couldn't do it per city code. And this is how it is everywhere in America. Our historical main streets and downtowns, they're not like our suburban development. You know, development of the 80s, 90s, and 2000s was, here's your building, and then you have to have this giant parking lot. Where Commercial Street is, you know, a very historic planning, which is buildings on the street, not a ton of big parking lots everywhere, and kind of this big shared parking. That's how, you know, that's Main Street USA and Disney, that's Fort Collins, that's all these, you know, old towns that have Park City Main Street, 25th Street in Ogden, all these towns. You can't build that by modern day code. So you have to kind of say, that's a unique gem and it's going to operate on its own. If we were to go back in and count all the square footages on every building on Commercial Street and then say, we want this much parking because you have a tanning salon and I need 2 stalls per tanning salon or whatever it is, the church pew, 1 stall per 3 seats, or, you know, something like that. It doesn't work. So it's a little bit hard, but I'm saying just kind of put Commercial Street on its own deal, because if we try to zone it how we do the State Street, the GC zone, or other places, it wouldn't be Commercial Street as we know it. It would be, there wouldn't be any new development. You go to build those two pads in front of the hotel, you would have to have one of those tiny little coffee drive-through things to get all the parking that's going to be required per a zone. Or if we say this is a historical area, we want to follow the times that it was built, we're just going to say you have to walk, you know. Does that help? Sorry.
Well,
I
you gotta step back from that. I get that. It's just that, you know, I just think about it when we're talking about these things, and I need to kind of, you know, broaden my horizon, I suppose, but.
We do have that nice plaza coming with 50 stalls.
True.
I think we, this is what I'm gonna say. We may have to sit on this one for a little bit and just think about this, get it wrapped around in our heads. Things I've been thinking is I was in 2 different cities today with main streets. I was on Brigham City's Main Street, and then I was on Bountiful's Main Street. Thinking about, you know, this. I've seen this style of building down in Cedar City. Where I'm thinking of in particular with the residents above the office space, all of their parking is actually out in front of the building. And then you'd have the sidewalk and then you'd have the road. And so that's where all of the parking was for those,
For the residents
yep,
on the street?
yep.
That's
The
the-
back, the back of it is actually a fence
Yeah, I want to show you
in Cedar City. And so,
Yeah.
Bountiful Main Street.
I was on the old Bountiful Main Street and you get in there and it gets a little, what? Yeah, I was gonna say it gets a little tight, but they've got a lot of,
It's incredibly prosperous from where it's
Yes.
been.
yeah.
That's what I want you to think about is how prosperous that is. Let me just show you how Bountiful Main Street works.
Go to Vito's.
I've toured it.
Where I was at.
Use a Vito's, Philly cheesesteak.
Oh, it's good.
Hey, there we go. See, and some of
It
the
was really good, Tony.
the people that are anyway, let's just say high quality people
Yep, that's right where I was at.
that have looked at Bountiful or are also looking at Morgan.
So is that, I mean, maybe I didn't even pay attention, but
Let me show you here behind. This is how this works. This is all the residential parking all back here. And you see that this is even how they access their units going up above. And these units rent for high dollar.
They go through the back actually into their.
Yep, and they go up. And when these came out, I talked to the city planner. He told me they had doctors renting here while they're building homes. They had other professionals, like it was a place that people, and it still is in really good demand, high quality. You know, there's those who want to live where something's busy and there's some action, and then there's those that want to live on the perimeter of town and have horses and all that. And you have to think about a place for both. But yeah, this is where all the resident parking is back here, all the utilities.
Yep.
Is all back here. And then you go to the front, and this is all daytime use in here. And in terms of efficiency, this land use is like 50 miles to the gallon. Where a Walmart, if you look at property tax per acre, Walmart is like the lowest, but these kind of buildings are at the highest. And so that's good for city income, it's good for land use and all of that, in terms of actual land efficiency. And with the downtown areas, that's where you really want to say, how can we be the most efficient? So Bountiful is actually, this is a great example for us. And there's an example of the covered, where you can walk under,
Yep.
how you can go under, and that was part of that.
Gonna try it.
But you gotta take cash.
Yeah, I'll explain that to you.
You got an example, Jake, of a setback on this one?
Well, these are all zero.
Pardon?
Meaning, oh, a step back,
there.
sorry.
Look,
Oh.
just where you're at.
Yeah,
Stand
yeah,
up
sorry.
top.
I'm sorry, yeah, on the
Yep,
residential.
right there. See how it has the nice balconies and
Yeah, look at how
that's something of a nice building when
Yeah.
you start to see those.
it allows for a little patio too,
And
doesn't
and
it?
also doesn't feel as like
Yeah,
dominant.
not hitting you
It's
in the-
nicer for small
Quite as
cities
hard, yep.
to do that. And of course, there's all the glass, and that's where we're at, the 40% glass on the main
Yeah,
street.
you see that too.
20% up above, so some basic numbers there. And I've been here a ton of times. We like the ice cream place that's right here. It's really good ice cream, this Blacksmith, if you like custom ice cream. But it's always turning over. And where we may have to get with Commercial Street is a 1 hour parking or something like that, because we want those stalls to turn over. Those are the high dollar stalls, is right in front of the building, especially right in front of the buildings on Commercial Street. And Bountiful isn't even at this point yet, but that's where, so we don't want the employees parking, right in front of the restaurants and the retail or the honey place or whatever. Go ahead.
Jake, can I ask you a question? Cause I was actually sitting there at Vito's today. And, with my inside sales guy and we were both commenting on Main Street at Bountiful here. And, he's like, man, that would be nice if we could have something like that in Morgan. Let me ask you, and Ty kind of hinted at this, so this may be a clue to me, which kind of changed my mind the way I was gonna see this. Is part of the appeal of this thing is actually you got the restaurant in the bottom and then the residence above? I mean, that kind of, he said that statement, it kind of, that's the appeal of building something like this.
Yes, definitely.
Cause then
Definitely.
you're kind of making more bang for your buck, and that's,
Exactly.
Monthly rent.
then you're not just having the restaurant on the bottom, but you're also getting.
So you have maybe
That's
more,
kinda changing my,
more jobs per acre.
what?
The light turned on.
That did for me. I
The
was gonna,
sales tax of this building is a lot more per acre than a Walmart or any, you know, horizontal, and nothing against Walmart, but then a horizontal kind of one. And where the idea of Morgan staying compact, that's what we all want. And so having some of this in the downtown, you'll get more bang for your buck on efficiency, jobs, housing, parking's a challenge. We'll have to work through that. But again, and what I found with Bountiful, there's always stalls. You just might have to walk a little bit. You know, once in a while, I get my hair cut down the street here, and sometimes I get lucky and I park in front, and other times I have to walk a block, and I need it.
You don't object.
Dave, you can chime in on this if you would like as well, or Mayor. So Planning Commission has discussed this at some great lengths. So it's coming to us tonight from a recommendation from the Planning Commission. So, and they vetted this pretty well. Ray is on that Planning Commission, so you know it got
Yeah,
vetted very well.
he was pretty
So,
careful.
Yes.
And,
Few comments.
yeah, so,
We've made plenty of tweaks.
Yep.
so I
So that's
just,
already been done.
I'm just pointing that out. I'm not suggesting we rubber stamp anything, but I'm just saying that Planning Commission has spent a great deal of time on this and recommended it to us.
Considering
Well, I-
that, and that's a good point, Tony, the three of us have had that opportunity where it's been to them, what, 3 or 4 times.
4 times, but one of those was just a preliminary,
Mm-hmm.
introduce it, and then 3 times they saw it in
I
late.
mean, even with the last, the time before last, the chair made an admonition that they needed to act on it probably within the next meeting. There was enough going back and forth. So in other words, please study and be prepared to make a decision. But
My comment is experience on mahogany, and it's not the same as what this is. So council members don't worry about my comment, my feeling on it. I have a business in Washington Terrace. If my neighbor wasn't kind to me, I have 30 cars parked on his lot. And he won't take any money. He just says, just plow my lot.
Well,
And without him, I'd be in a pickle.
so they're a good shared parking of just good neighbors and friends.
Well, yeah, if that's what you run into is a good neighbor. But at any time he could say, I need my lot. And then we'd have to figure out something, but, so don't take my negativity on this, as
it's been a healthy discussion though, Steve.
I think,
Good to bring up.
I think this is a different category than mahogany.
And
But-
we'd be happy to look at mahogany ordinances. Sounds like it's been tweaked already, but I'd be happy to.
All
add
you
that
gotta
to our
do is have our
ordinances.
fire chief right up there with you.
Hmm.
You couldn't get a fire truck through there.
Right.
But it was the first type of development in the city, and there were some mistakes made. And that's why I voice, because that's where my ward is, and every Sunday I hear it.
Well, you're the mayor. I get that.
So-
Yeah, Mayor,
So,
oh,
yeah,
go ahead.
no, I just said, don't take mine as negative for this type of development. Okay, that's all I need to say.
You know, and so my final comment, whatever you end up doing is, this is, I just appreciate Jake working so hard on it. Several years ago, this was a topic of we need to look at mixed use and never took a step towards it. You know what the demand is for RM15. And all the places that, this kind of takes that demand and puts it into usable area.
Solve
I
the,
just really appreciate having something to look at, because back then we started with the general plan and that took a good 2 years. And I just want to remind everybody, I think the general plan discussion started with, we need some mixed use space. So it's a long time coming and done a lot of work. And my final comment on the shared parking is, if you look at all of these buildings on the front, you don't access the residential. So the likelihood that a guest parks in the front in order to walk all the way around to the back of the building in order to visit somebody means the back has to just totally be full. Otherwise, they're parking in somebody else's dedicated stall or on the side street or something like that. But it is a separate, someone for commercial is gonna not drive around back. You know, if, because just the way that that's built, it really does lend itself to a separation of commercial and residents. I think it's a good design. That's all. Thanks.
Steve, I'd be willing to propose a
Right there it is.
a recommendation.
Let's do it.
So I'd move that we approve ordinance 250-04, an ordinance amending Title 10 zoning regulations, providing for the consistency in the land use application for mixed-use buildings, providing for repealer, providing for severability, providing for immediate effective date, with an additional change, and that is in Section 2, Part 10.30.070, Paragraph 1.5, we include the word professional engineer in front of parking study. Does that work?
That works, yes.
Okay.
I will second that.
Okay, we have a motion from Dave on ordinance 25-04, a second from Tony. Jeffrey?
Can I?
Oh, go ahead.
Can I have a discussion here for just a sec? You know, I've thought a lot about this, and you know, the one thing that I keep coming back to is that I think we need to remember that any of these ordinances we pass are sometimes works in progress. You know, if something comes along that we don't like, you know, we always have the ability to go in there and make some changes. So that's always some comfort to me personally. So,
Generally, questions aren't there.
yeah,
You don't know what
and
the
sometimes
future
I
will
think
be.
to think that we can get this right the first time out the gate is almost vain of us to think that we can nail it down the first go round. But anyway, I just wanted to just point that out. So
Thank you. Before we take a vote, I haven't been watching you very close, Jeff. Did you have any comments? Thumbs up if you're okay.
You're muted.
You're muted. There you go.
Now.
Didn't hear him.
We didn't hear you.
Anything to add, Jeff?
No.
Okay. Okay. I think I mentioned that. Jeffrey,
Aye.
Tony, Eric.
Aye.
Dave,
Aye.
Jeff. Okay, Janet, that's unanimous. And
That would be awesome. Let's do it.
Get what?
Get vetoes to come up here.
There was a nice little bakery there that I was about to step in, but I was so full.
The ice cream store,
That's really good.
the ice cream store's just down the street.
Yeah, you gotta go to the ice cream store.
We have an ice cream store.
Bakery's across the street.
What?
Bakery's right across the street.
Yeah.
Okay, maybe good things are coming. Again, I put a negative view on something completely different, but, do we have any business or reports from,
There's one,
More agenda item.
oh,
we got one more agenda item.
item C, okay. Thanks, Ty. So I've been doing a little bit of talking and thinking of amending the city council meeting schedule to once a month. And then that would be the fourth Tuesday month. And if we had another meeting that we needed to have to do business in, we could, what do you call that?
Just- You can schedule a special meeting.
Yeah,
Special meeting, yeah.
Mm.
Just some input from you guys. Gary, is that legality? Is that okay?
Oh, he's muted.
You're muted, Gary.
Muted.
He's still muted.
You're muted,
Can't hear you,
Gary.
Gary.
There
Yeah,
you
I just had to get the little red thing to go away.
go.
Yes, you could do that. There's nothing that requires that you meet twice a month. So if you determine to do that, you could do that. You'd have to amend your yearly schedule.
Which,
But that's not a
which is
big deal.
July, right?
Yeah. Yes,
Uh,
once a year, at the beginning of the fiscal year, you usually renew that. Or is it the
It's calendar year.
calendar? It's a calendar year.
We've already posted it, so we just amend it.
Yeah,
Okay.
and that'd be easy to do if you wanted to do that.
So Steve, I'll chime in. I like the idea of fewer meetings rather than more for sure, but in that light, I would expect and be willing to spend a little more time on the one meeting that we have, because you'll have more business. And rather than starting at 7, maybe suggest 6. And then I'd like to hear from Ty, because it affects him as much as anybody. Is that something that puts a bind on city and your operation?
No, so it's actually easier to do one a month, one set of minutes, one noticing requirement, one agenda and packet. I would just say, if you go that route, just to request the city manager give you an update on the off week, like an email. I mean, you don't get a lot anyway, but just a couple weeks ago, I was requested to keep everybody up to date. So
Keep us up to date, but we don't want to see you.
So I'm just,
but we'll never be here, Ty.
so I'm just saying, in order to keep everybody up to date, we just handle, just a post to everybody on administrative items and, just my 2 cents. But the logic doesn't, it makes, it'll be a longer meeting for sure. Some of our meetings go by pretty fast, but recognizing also that planning commissions have taken on a lot.
That's a good point.
A lot more. We used to have a lot of stuff just constantly come for conditional and finals, and there was just a lot of demand that way. So the communication, just one of my only things is keeping you informed. That's my only caution, but administratively, it's actually easier to do one a month. And then I had another thought, but it's gone.
What, which day would that?
Oh, so that was my other thought, is on the fourth means it would follow planning commission. So if you do have an applicant that goes to planning commission that is coming to council, they're not waiting
Could be
almost,
immediate, yeah.
they're not waiting for 3 more weeks. It's just the following week. So that's how that was proposed.
Steve, what's your concept or thought of just doing 1 versus 2? What did you have? I mean, why would that be better?
Did you say me?
Yeah,
Okay.
just just wondering what the process,
Well,
the process that says maybe 1 versus 2.
part of it's talking to Ty.
Okay.
The other, and it's probably more my idea than his, but when it came, I just thought that we can accomplish in 1 meeting, basically what we do in 2.
Mhm.
And if we're with the 4th Tuesday after the 3rd Tuesday of Planning Commission, it just seemed to fit that.
Mhm.
And then from the 4th Tuesday, then we go around to the 2nd Tuesday. We're sometimes, looking at 3 weeks.
Mhm.
So there's only a time or two when you look at the calendar that it would affect how much time there is between the meetings. And then I think that if we do emails from Ty, keep up to date on things, I'm not necessarily saying that we're just spinning wheels by 2 meetings, but I just think we could be more effective. And
I think it can add efficiency to what we're doing if there's,
Yeah.
we cover it all at the same time. I think there's some efficiency that's built into it.
Gary, I'm not sure your expression is good.
No, I think it's a good idea. I would like to just maybe recommend that you go back to having, if you're going to have 1 meeting, a work meeting prior to, and perhaps in that meeting cover some of the business that, for example, training. I'm a little worried that training would lag and that we haven't been able to do that, but there's required training every year. And so there's that. And then a lot of times things that have gone on in the community and that type of thing could be covered in the work meeting. I think that it's invaluable because it kind of condenses what you're going to actually talk about at the meeting, and it's a lot easier because you can ask your questions in kind of an open forum rather than as part of the public hearing, which if you have public present and you're deliberating in front of them regarding even just an illustration of the sign ordinance and the changes that are proposed there. Today it was more like a work meeting as you discuss that back and forth. But the nice thing about work meetings is that you have a limited amount of time in order to discuss that. That's the time for staff to be able to give you all the details and raise all the issues, and for you to raise all the issues in an informal manner. And then when you get to the meeting, the meetings tend to be a lot shorter, with that work meeting. So that's the only thing I've noticed in all the jurisdictions that I have, been a city attorney in. We haven't had anything that complicated until just recently, but you can see what happens is that we tend to turn the public meeting into a work meeting. And those can go for an awfully long time. If you're gathered around a table and you're asking those questions, it would be relatively shorter. I don't know how Ty feels about that, or Mayor, how you feel about that, and other members of the council. But if you take a look at, our past, where we have had issues, the work meeting has been really important. Where there's nothing on the agenda, then maybe the work meeting would be good for training. But if you're going to 1 meeting, I would really recommend that strongly so that you can speak freely in a forum and not have to be at the dais when you're deliberating over ordinances. So that's my feeling, my 2 cents, I guess.
That works.
So with that idea, we'd have the work meeting at 6. And then we'll be more efficient in this meeting.
That's really,
All right.
from what I've seen, that's the result.
We'd just be consistent with the work meeting at 6.
Yeah, that,
I mean,
I'll state my opinion. I've seen our work meetings on one topic go the entire hour, and then we spend the next city council going through the rest of the agenda items because we've hammered out something for an hour, and then we have to stop in the middle of our discussion because. So that's my take on the
Thanks, Jake.
on the work
Good night,
meeting.
Jake.
I do see Gary's point. I think it is valid. Now, with all that being, well, I got a bunch to say. The mess meeting is no meeting, so I'm all aboard on that. Yeah, or a short one, right? So the best meeting's no meeting. Second of all, since I'm the one that raised it, I would be, as long as we could get some kind of communication of what administratively is going on in the city, because it's still, I mean, and maybe it's my fault, but you just get the residents, hey, what's going on here? What's going on here? Hey, what about this? And you're, and granted, I think I learned a lot last week when I brought this up. There are some things that are going on that you're just, I don't know, which is a great answer. But still, we just get inundated with, hey, what about this? What about that? With all that being said, I thought tonight's meeting was going to be fairly short. Here we are 2 hours later. My only concern is if we go to once a month, we may be here 4 or 5 hours because depending on what we had to discuss and what was coming up, right? I mean, if we had to take care of that business, we may be 4 or 5 hours. My take on it is I would rather keep it on the same schedule, Mayor. And if we don't have any business coming up, then let's just cancel the meeting and do it that way and just keep on the same schedule. Because if we've already done that this year, there wasn't a lot on the agenda, so we just canceled it. I think it's easier to cancel the meeting than necessarily maybe spending 4 or 5 hours in one night trying to take care of the business for the city. So there's kind of my thoughts. It's pretty dang easy to cancel a city council meeting if we don't have a lot on the agenda.
Good point.
To push it. I just worry about the time restraints, because even if we go to a work meeting at 6, I could see us being here till 10:30 on the regular city council meeting. Not that, I mean,
But it's still the same hours if you spend 5 hours here and 7 hours in 2 meetings.
well,
Again, my point is it's a little more efficient.
Sometimes when we don't meet for a month at a time, I feel like I can't even find my way to the city off. I just sort of feel a little bit, we're kind of disconnected and really out of the loop. And I think some of it has to do, even though Ty could give us information and try to keep us up to date on everything. I mean, this is me, my feeling is still there is some validity in sitting here listening to you guys and having a discussion with you. So I will tell you straight out, I am probably not in favor of going to one meeting a month. I'd prefer to keep it the way it is.
Okay.
You're on, Jeff.
My ADHD kicks in. I would rather have 2 2-hour meetings than 1 4-hour meeting. But for my ability to focus and stay
Stay awake.
attentive,
Okay.
Like your school kids.
I act more like a 14-year-old than anything else. I run on a 45-minute bell. When the bell doesn't ring, I'm looking around. And go, I gotta move. I gotta go.
Fair enough.
Jeff, are you still there?
oh, see,
Jeff says it doesn't matter. My vote doesn't count now.
Okay. I guess I feel somewhat the way I feel because Janet and Ty can attest, I invade the office almost every day. So I get a lot of info and rumors and stuff like that. So no, I guess we'll stay with the 2 meeting
Okay.
for now, and if we don't have anything, we'll.
Yeah, there will be no opposition to get it canceled.
Okay.
I won't cry.
What?
And I like Eric's point on that. If, you know, we've canceled meetings in the past if we don't have anything, you know,
Right.
that pressing, and I like that way, I think, better than just scheduling one meeting a month personally.
And it's hard to anticipate, like Eric said, there was only a couple of agenda items. We'd gone through planning commission so many times. We didn't anticipate a work session, but today would have been a perfect day to have a work session. So
Yes.
we'll also
Yeah.
you gotta evaluate that you never know, right? It's like,
And having participated with the planning commission, I would have said the same. We wouldn't have had much discussion because it's all been covered. Yeah,
like if
but
we're bringing up the correct number of dogs, then that's definitely a work session.
yeah,
Well, I tell you what, this one right here, this,
When we
when
bring,
we start tackling that, we're gonna need a work session.
yeah.
I
Probably about 3 of them.
don't know. I really like copying Leighton.
No, I'm just saying, man, I still got some concerns with the Leighton one.
But I do agree with Gary. I think work sessions, I think, are pretty valuable sometimes because when we've had them in the past,
Yes.
a lot of times at 7 o'clock, we'll come into a general session and in 20, 30 minutes, we're done because the only thing that's ever concerned me is anybody listening to the tape would think that we never spent any time on it.
Mhm.
But I've many times commented that, you know, there's been a lot of discussion prior to that. But I think that's a good point, Gary, that, you know, it does seem to expedite and speed along your general meeting. So, and it gives you a chance to kind of dive into some things as well. But anyway,
Okay. Well, we'll move away from item C and not make a change. Okay, council, is there anything to review?
I have two quick things.
Okay.
The Arts Council, they had their
Concert.
concert last night. Very entertaining. The mayor was there. I was there. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I felt bad. They didn't have a real good turnout to it. I know they'd spent a lot of time preparing for it, but I know they're trying to get that kick started and get it going. So I guess,
It
I
was
guess-
100% more than,
I guess what I'm trying to say is if you can support them, you know, support them because it was
good.
It was very good. And then the other thing is, have any of you been over by the new bridge lately?
Yeah.
See the work going on.
Oh, it looks nice. They've done a lot of work over there. They planted a lot of shrubbery and done a lot of landscaping over there by the new bridge and over by the what would you call it? The parking lot, yeah, on the other side of the bridge. And so if you get a chance, take a little cruise over there and see what they've done. They're not done, but well, it's looking pretty good. So
There's some artwork underneath it.
yeah.
That's one complaint I've had. And the graffiti on the railroad tracks referring to Trump. Is that the city that needs to go paint that over that? Whose job is it to remove all of that?
Also, I was going to bring this up. In the meeting, in the minutes, it said that Tony London said that we need to hire someone to watch the graffiti. It's there in the minutes. If I said we needed to hire someone, I misspoke. I'm not suggesting we hire somebody to go over there and sit and wait for I'd rather, and maybe that's how I stated it on the tape. But what I think I probably would have rather said is we need to come up with some sort of a resolution or something that we can do to try to prevent that from, and then that's when you mentioned, Ty, that we were going to get cameras at some point when it got completed. So anyway, I just wanted to throw that in. I'm not suggesting we hire somebody to go over there and be the bridge monitor, but yeah, we do need to do something to prevent it, I think.
If you see
Yeah.
getting on the freeway heading east on the railroad
I'm talking
abutment.
under our new bridge as well.
I
So
haven't noticed that one. We have an anti-Trump.
Somebody,
Oh,
it's been there, it's been on there for a couple of weeks.
I need to start driving around more.
yeah, you need to get out more, get away from vetoes. Yeah.
Okay.
Typically, it's the property owner's responsibility, but getting the railroad to move on anything is, you know, like impossible, practically impossible. So,
Look at their
um,
boxcars, huh?
yeah, yes,
Case
unless
in point,
that's just the
it
perfect.
doesn't bother them.
No, no.
Underneath that.
Underneath the
Yeah.
one,
A lot of times volunteers will do it,
down
but
from the hitching post. I haven't seen it either. I haven't seen that one. I've seen them under the bridge, but I haven't.
Might have to go for a drive tonight.
We'll have the seniors do it if they're gonna whitewash the M.
Yeah, a lot of white paint.
150 of them up to the end, we could maybe put 50 of them whitewashing the pillars on the
Well, we
freeway.
can- Yeah. We'll get something done with the bridge, but we're working on lighting and cameras. Otherwise it's a moot point. So we just don't wanna
Yeah.
Yeah.
keep
I just hope,
painting and repainting until we get something that'll,
I just hope nobody
Sure.
vandalizes what they're doing over there right now with that landscaping. That's the
Drive
only
a
thing.
motorcycle
Yeah,
through the
it
middle of it.
concerns me a little bit because it
nice.
looks really nice.
Okay, Ty?
I've got just
Oh, okay.
a follow-up.
Sorry.
and we've already discussed it, but I'd just like to maybe come to a little better conclusion. And it's brought up in and to Eric's point, at their last meeting and Ty's comments tonight, but talking about getting information, last planning commission meeting, there was an item number 2 that was removed from the agenda, and it was a discussion on, a motion discussion on townhomes, a fourplex at 650 North Jenny Lane. And it was removed because with our new ordinance, the staff approves units that are less than 5. And so I look at that and say, unless there's something coming forward to the county, to the commission, and I'll refer back to the county, we wouldn't have a clue that that was even started. I mean, they could almost start it and build it and finish it, and the city council wouldn't know. And so I thought about it. How important is it that we do know it? There's probably some value in knowing what's going on in the city because we're going to be asked. In the COG meeting, the COG publishes a list, and it's fine print. I don't know that Tony and I can read it, but they publish a list of all the permits that have been issued since the last meeting. And so I'm wondering, Ty, in part of your communication, could we have something published that would say, here's maybe applications, here's permits that have been issued? The planning commission heard about a conditional use or considered a conditional use permit for Black Ridge Automotive. And so that was part of that. I can report, and Tony and Steve could report to the council that they approved a conditional use permit for auto sales for over in the old Wally's garage there. But look at the permits that don't require a conditional use. I would have no way that they've been approved. And it may be helpful to know just on an ongoing basis what is and what isn't. I guess what I'm leading up to is how formal do we need to be? I don't want to make it too hard, but at the same time, how do we get the information? Just finishing up our discussion that Eric started last meeting.
I would just, probably just make more formal reports, because like the conditional use is a business license. Do you want to know about every business license? Like
Yeah, that's a great question. I think I wouldn't mind knowing about them.
or certain criteria?
How many would we get a month? How many business license requests would we get a month?
Well, everybody renews, and so,
Yeah, maybe not renewals, maybe new ones. I don't know. Yeah, we'd have to figure out the criteria, and maybe that isn't for discussion tonight.
yeah, well, we can
Maybe come
mess
back,
around with things,
Yeah.
but
come back with a proposal or something.
just whatever staff time makes sense on trying to get.
And I respect that. We don't want to get overboard. We don't want to go overboard. Is there something that's easy to push a button? And it appears the permit deal with the county, it's all in a spreadsheet of some sort. that,
Yeah, our staff does the building permit report for
Oh,
the
do we?
city. Yeah.
They're already doing that.
Mhm.
Okay.
I thought
Mostly just for numbers.
I brought that, Dave, the
Building
building permit
permits.
numbers. Can't find it. I thought I brought it.
Yeah.
But it's a good point. You know, there was, you're
Month
absolutely
by
right.
month, a lot of those don't change too, like we bring the same information to the cog.
And yeah, how relevant is it when it's routine and the same from time to time? So what can we come up with? Maybe at this point, just some future consideration on your end, but balancing the need for information versus the time and effort that it takes to put it together and maybe come up with a proposal. I'd have a lot of confidence in something that you'd come up with.
Okay, yeah, I'll look into some different areas.
Okay.
Can I piggyback on that, Dave, for just a second? I wrote down what they talked about in planning meeting. You brought up the CUP for the auto dealership. I wrote down, so I found it interesting. We had a rendering of the alley and the plaza in that meeting that I found really interesting. I don't know if Jeffrey or Eric's had a chance to see that rendering, but it might interest you to see that rendering. So, you know, something like
Yeah,
that.
maybe be a piece of information.
Something like that
That'd be a
you could- yeah.
benefit. Again, in a lot of cases, we're probably expected to know about it before most people, and yet with our changes in ordinance and activity, we may be finding out about things later rather than sooner now.
But it was interesting. There was a rendering of the alleyway
Yeah,
behind
very
Commercial
well
Street.
done,
and
but
the plaza that's going to be back there, and whether, what happens there, but I thought it was interesting to see what the potential was there. So, and so I
how
thought,
do we pass that or keep it moving or flowing or pass it along?
yeah, anyway.
And
Right, that's, yeah, Ty, if you'll maybe take an assignment there to.
Jeffrey?
one other update again for the city council. You're gonna see some movement. Are we going on the Riverside Park? Were we waiting on a grant from the COG meeting? The county, they want to go in and restore and put lights and do some stuff at the Riverside Park baseball diamond to get that back up and usable again. So that might be something you will have people ask you about moving forward in the next
Yeah,
months,
yeah,
I
we've
hope.
been working with the Rocky Mountain Baseball.
county.
School, or Rocky Mountain School of
Association.
Baseball.
Yeah.
And the county rec program's gonna use it quite a bit, so.
Okay, I apologize for taking up some time here. I need to ask another question. So when I was looking at again at the minutes, when I was talking about that last time around, and I noticed that lights cost this much and restoring the baseball field, and it was like $240,000, something like that.
Mhm.
And it was a 60-40 split. So and then we said that we would split that 50-50 with the county, right?
Mhm.
So I mean, 40% of 240 is what, 96,000?
Mhm.
And then if we split that, it'd be around 45,000. And that's how I understood it. Is that correct?
Yep.
Okay. All right. Okay. I was trying to determine where that 45,000 come up, but now I know. Thank you.
Aye.
Okay, so our Young Street West project is underway. We do have a little bit of a hiccup on utilities, so there's some communication lines on our power poles that we're trying to get taken down. We've notified CenturyLink back in October, and just so you know, now we're gonna tell them we're moving them if they don't, so. I think that's in our franchise agreement that covers us that way anyway. Then our recycling cans are going well. We've put together, like built and stickered a semi-truckload of them, and this whole side of town over here has already been delivered. So the new trailer that we bought holds like 27 cans or something like that. So it's a lot better than a pickup truck and a so anyway, that project's going, and we're fielding questions. It raises a lot of.
How's the
questions.
reception been when you've dropped them off?
Some people are super excited.
Some people are not.
Oh, I'm sure.
And a lot of people aren't home when we deliver them, but just more questions, I think, than,
Good.
you'll hear about the negativity towards it more so than you will the
Oh, I'm
positive.
sure.
Human nature.
Yeah.
But not a ton of negativity so far, so it's been pretty good. So in the spirit of the current discussion, we did receive an application for a brand new subdivision. So you're the first to know.
Yeah. And it's more than 5 lots.
It's more than 5 lots. It's called Morgan Creekside Meadows. So, anyway, it's
Can you tell where it is?
yeah, it's continuing on from the Rupp subdivision over to Pheasant Run, so.
Yeah, I'm just saying that, see, like, that's good to know, cause there's already been work going there and I'm already getting dinged like, what's crap's going on? Yeah,
I drove down there today.
Yeah, they're piping ditches, so,
yeah. Yeah.
What did they name it again?
Morgan Creekside Meadows.
Okay.
So, another thing that
How
came
many
up,
units, by the way?
I can't remember,
A bunch.
cause it's phase 1 of other phases too, so I can't remember
In the, like,
the next
20
parcel
to
over.
50, would there be that many?
For sure,
In phase 1?
yeah,
Okay.
phase 1.
In all of the phases, it's like 2.
So our State Street Power Line project, is still moving forward. It goes down 250 east as well. And there's not enough right of way to put the power lines in the ground. So that sidewalk is like one of our worst sidewalks in the city. So, more than likely, we're just gonna tear up that sidewalk, put the power lines down and then put a new sidewalk as part of that project. And so it'll be go from a 4-foot dilapidated sidewalk to a 5-foot brand new sidewalk when it's done.
If you need to repair power lines,
So,
concrete.
well, they're in conduit, so you just have to pull the line out and pull new.
I see. So you're not removing the sidewalk to do it.
Mm-mm.
Repairs.
Yeah, that's,
Unless something went catastrophic.
yeah, and then you just patch and replace as you have to. Yep, and then just another note on the Arts Council, they asked us to put another thing in the bill, and I told them we don't want to put every single community activity in our billing. So we did the one, right, that just happened, but we'll still put it on our sign. But just in case you get any feedback,
Yeah, you
just don't
could-
want to open that door to,
You'd get carried away, couldn't it?
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it costs us,
Yeah.
every time we put an extra flyer in there, so. It's not sure how effective that is, but the sign definitely is the way to go on
Yeah,
that, so.
Side could have
Yeah.
more impact.
I was gonna ask you on that. Do you have any kind of, the sign seems to be, I've heard good and bad, but,
What bad have you heard? I haven't heard any.
oh, I have, but anyway. But, the good is,
No, after.
I will. But, God, now I lost my train of thought. Oh, I know. Is that the way pretty much you're gonna disperse information on the sign out there? Here and there,
Yeah,
coming
community.
in? Yeah,
That one's gonna be more of the events than ours out front. Ours
Okay.
out front are more,
okay,
it's a smaller sign and more unique to like city business.
perfect.
So,
Okay, great.
unless there's any other questions, that's all I have.
Okay, thank you. Everybody okay?
I'm good.
This meeting's adjourned.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, Gary.
Yeah, good night, Gary.
I just, I think we gotta do some work on that, man, like. No, on the chickens thing.
Oh, yeah. We talked about it before.
Yeah.
We did. I remember,
Could come up with But I think at the time we were approaching it as farm animals.
We did. We absolutely did. We wasn't really thinking about chickens when we put that thing in.
We were talking about like, well, farm animals.
Yeah.
The ordinance right now is created for farm animals, but we didn't.
Anticipate the chicken, craze.
Specifically with chickens. But
I take a picture of
My concern is, I'm just telling you, man, I've had multiple neighbors just turn those things loose and they are everywhere. I mean,
What if we get the avian flu in them? Then what, huh?
I mean, if we could say,
Yeah.
I mean, I guess I'd be more on board if we could say something like Layton, where you've got to contain those things into your yard and coop them at night, but I don't know how you'd enforce that, but anyway.
Here's how we can do it. Oh, yeah. If that chicken's outside of your yard, it's free game for BB guns.
Well, I'll put it to you this way. People get very attached. I'm just gonna say, very, very, very attached to their chickens. I mean, like, they name them and they're.
Yeah, this is phase one.
It's a,
That's this family that's just talking about.
yeah, I mean, I'm like,
Arrangement.
Yeah,
almost
there's
like,
a lot, but this is-
always laugh.
This
James
road right
Lott
here.
always tells me, this is how I start my tree cave.
And a big
Is
open
this a
space.
family member? Is this a pet or is this a farm animal? Yeah. Oh, my, that makes a ton of sense.
I can see that. I can't believe Well, that's the thing. I'm sure they have very few chickens. Some of them people, they have
No.
huge.
I know that.
Humongous dogs that bark all day, all day.
This was.
Yeah.
Public.
Trust me, I got a neighbor that does that one too. It's like.
So we have an
Now,
application.
an application.
I guess I should.
I don't-
Acquainted, but.
can do there.
That's the rate of the mamas.
Well, yeah, in November, but
say.
anyway.
But yeah,
But the good part is,
that's been.
the farm has been there since 1887.
Yeah, there you go. So that's why you have a lot of noise.
Well, and you guys